Two pieces of Princess Diana's jewelry had been missing from public view for more than 20 years. Then suddenly, they appeared in a Sotheby's catalog, and the name connected to the listing was Camilla's own daughter. A black diamond pendant, a sapphire bracelet, and one explosive question Prince William allegedly wanted answered immediately. How did Diana's jewelry end up there, and who gave anyone permission to sell it? According to this account, the discovery sent shockwaves through Kensington Palace, because William reportedly recognized more than just valuable jewelry. These were pieces tied to his mother, and according to the story, to a promise made to him when he was still a grieving teenager after Diana's death. The moment palace staff reportedly realized what they were looking at, this stopped being a simple auction listing. It became a royal family crisis. And the most disturbing detail, the listing was allegedly connected to Laura Lopez, Queen Camilla's daughter. If the pieces were authentic, William didn't just want to know where they had been for all these years. He wanted to know how they got there, who authorized the sale, and whether something had been hidden from him for decades. And according to this account, William was not prepared to handle the matter quietly. What happened next reportedly brought Camilla, Charles, and William into a confrontation that threatened to drag old wounds surrounding Princess Diana back into the spotlight. Subscribe to the Royal Echo because this story is only beginning, and the deeper we go, the more explosive the questions become. To understand William's reaction, however, we have to go back several weeks. The discovery did not begin with a dramatic royal meeting. It began with something far more ordinary, a piece of auction paperwork. A Kensington Palace employee was reportedly reviewing documentation connected to Sotheby's when two photographs appeared on screen. At first, there was nothing unusual about them. Two pieces of jewelry photographed against a simple background. But the staff member recognized them. The first was a black diamond pendant. The second was a sapphire bracelet. According to the story, both had once been associated with Diana. The employee did not treat the discovery as routine. Instead, the images were quickly passed to senior officials. Within a short time, William was shown the photographs, and his reaction was reportedly very different from what palace staff expected. He did not immediately call Camilla. He did not ask for an informal family discussion. Instead, he contacted his legal advisors. The name attached to the auction documentation was Laura Lopez. That detail made the situation even more sensitive. If the jewelry was being presented as civilian property, the auction record could potentially create a very different ownership trail. And that was the part William's team wanted examined. The issue was not simply that two old pieces of jewelry had appeared. It was the possibility that their history could gradually disappear from the official record. Once an item had been cataloged and treated as private property, proving its royal connection could become far more difficult. That is why the discovery reportedly triggered an immediate legal review. But according to the story, William had already been preparing for something much larger. Weeks before the Sotheby's photographs appeared, another decision had reportedly been made inside the royal estate system. The move involved the Duchy of Cornwall. On paper, the decision appeared financial. A significant portion of commercial property was reportedly being restructured, with hundreds of millions of pounds involved. The public explanation focused on investment and community projects. But behind palace doors, the move was interpreted very differently. According to this account, William's advisors had been examining financial structures connected to several private trusts and funds around Camilla's wider circle. Some of those arrangements had allegedly existed for years. William reportedly believed that royal resources needed to remain focused on the institution rather than private interests. So the funding was cut. The message was simple. There would be no quiet transition, no long negotiation, no attempt to preserve old arrangements simply because they had existed for years. Camilla's household reportedly noticed the change almost immediately. Advisors began reviewing the financial impact. Legal teams started examining their options. And inside the palace, one conclusion was becoming harder to avoid. William was not simply reacting to one problem. He was changing the structure around it. That distinction would become important when the jewelry resurfaced. Because by the time the Sotheby's photographs reached William, the groundwork had allegedly already been laid. But there was another reason the jewelry mattered so much to him. It went back to his teenage years. According to the story, William was 17 when he was still struggling with the loss of his mother. Diana had been gone for several years, but grief does not follow a calendar. One day, William reportedly came across an old photograph of Diana, wearing the same two pieces. The image brought back memories. He asked what had happened to them. The answer he received was supposed to settle the matter. He was reportedly told that the jewelry had been placed somewhere secure, that it was being looked after, that there was nothing for him to worry about. For a teenager dealing with the loss of his mother, that reassurance mattered. The pieces were eventually said to have been kept at Highgrove, but according to the story, they were not fully recorded in the main Crown estate system. That created a strange administrative gap. The jewelry existed, its connection to Diana existed, but the paperwork needed to establish a clear chain of ownership was reportedly incomplete. For years nothing happened. No auction listing, no public appearance, no official announcement. The pieces simply disappeared from view. Then, more than 2 decades later, the photographs appeared. For William, the discovery was reportedly less shocking than confirming something he had quietly wondered about for years. He had been told the jewelry was safe. Now it was apparently being offered for sale. And that changed the situation completely. William could no longer treat the matter as a family misunderstanding. He needed legal certainty. According to the story, he went directly to his father. The meeting allegedly took place at Sandringham. William reportedly arrived carrying a legal file prepared by his advisors. The conversation was private. The atmosphere was serious. And the document inside that file was presented as a possible route to protect the disputed assets. The account describes it as a constitutional mechanism involving the protection of royal property and the authority of the heir. William's message to Charles was reportedly straightforward. There were 2 choices. Charles could approve the formal reclassification of Diana's jewelry as property reserved for the direct line of succession, or William could escalate the matter through constitutional and legal channels. The significance of that choice went far beyond 2 pieces of jewelry. It placed father and son on opposite sides of an institutional question. Who had the final responsibility for protecting the Crown's historical assets? And how far was William willing to go if he believed those assets were at risk? According to the story, Charles eventually signed. That signature changed the legal position of the jewelry. The pieces were now described as Crown property intended for the direct line of succession. The immediate family dispute had become an institutional matter. But the signature was only the beginning. William's legal team was reportedly already preparing the next steps. The story claims that court action followed shortly afterward. A freezing order was allegedly sought against assets connected to Laura Lopez. If granted, such an order could prevent money or property from being moved while ownership questions were examined. The purpose would not simply be punishment. It would be preservation. The idea was to stop disputed assets from disappearing before the court could determine what belonged where. According to the account, financial institutions were alerted. Accounts were frozen. Transfers were blocked. And Laura was suddenly facing a legal battle that could not be solved through palace relationships. Then came the alleged search. Early one morning, officials reportedly arrived at a property connected to Laura Lopez. The purpose was to locate the disputed jewelry. The search was presented as a formal legal action rather than a private royal request. Eventually, the black diamond pendant and sapphire bracelet were reportedly found. They were photographed. They were documented. And they were taken into official custody. For William, this was the first major victory. But the situation was about to become even more damaging for Camilla's household. Because according to the story, the legal fight also affected the one thing Camilla had spent years building: control of the public narrative. For decades, Camilla had learned how to survive the intense attention surrounding the royal family. She had faced hostility. She had endured years of criticism. And over time, she had built a more accepted public image that required relationships with advisors, journalists, palace officials, and communications teams. But now, according to the account, William's side moved to restrict communications surrounding the case. No unofficial explanations. No background briefings. No carefully placed comments. No competing version of events. Everything had to pass through authorized channels. For Camilla, That reportedly created a serious problem. Without the ability to shape the story, her household was left reacting instead of controlling the narrative. Behind closed doors, advisors were searching for solutions. But every route appeared blocked. The legal process was moving faster than the family could respond. Laura eventually agreed to surrender any claim to the disputed pieces. According to the story, the jewelry was recovered, and the immediate legal battle appeared to be over. But then came the detail that changed everything. The audit was not finished. Investigators reportedly began examining the original inventory of Diana-related artifacts. And 2 recovered pieces were not the whole story. They were only part of it. The review allegedly showed that 14 pieces had once been recorded within the relevant collection. 2 had now been recovered. 12 were still missing. That discovery transformed the story. The question was no longer why 2 pieces had appeared at Sotheby's. It was where the other 12 had gone. According to the account, investigators followed a complicated paper trail. The pieces had allegedly been transferred through different entities, making their original ownership difficult to trace. Eventually, the trail reportedly pointed outside Britain. The destination was said to be a private company in Delaware. That detail mattered. American corporate structures can create layers of separation between an asset and the person ultimately controlling it. And if the jewelry had crossed the Atlantic, recovering it would become much harder. British court orders could not simply reach into another country without the proper legal process. So William had apparently recovered 2 pieces, but 12 others remained beyond his immediate reach. Then came the most controversial part of the story. The leaked material allegedly contained a mysterious reference, the Montecito connection. For royal watchers, that phrase would immediately attract attention. Montecito has become closely associated with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle after their move to California. But the story does not establish that either of them owned, moved, or controlled the missing jewelry. Instead, the phrase reportedly raised questions about whether someone connected to the wider royal dispute could have knowledge of the missing artifacts. And that uncertainty became part of the mystery. Who controlled the 12 pieces? Why had they been moved? Who arranged the structure that allegedly placed them beyond easy British jurisdiction? And perhaps most importantly, how long had the plan been developing? Those questions had no clear public answer. The palace, according to the account, remained silent. That silence only made the speculation grow. Financial journalists were reportedly noticing unusual activity around accounts connected to the wider investigation. Legal observers were asking questions. Royal commentators were discussing the significance of the case without being able to confirm the details. And the public began connecting the pieces themselves. The biggest question was simple. If 2 artifacts could be recovered through the British legal system, why had the remaining 12 not been brought back? The answer appeared to be jurisdiction. The 2 pieces found in Britain were within reach. The others were reportedly somewhere else. That meant William could protect the future without necessarily recovering everything from the past. And that distinction mattered, because the next step was not simply about recovering missing jewelry. It was about making sure something similar could never happen again. The story claims that William's team helped establish a new legal structure connected to Diana's legacy. It was described as the Diana Heritage Trust. Under the reported arrangement, Diana's documented personal artifacts would be protected for the next generation of the direct royal line. Catherine, Princess of Wales, would become a central figure in that future. And eventually, the legacy would pass to Princess Charlotte. The symbolism was obvious. Diana's personal history would not be treated as an asset that could move freely between royal households. It would be protected as part of a carefully controlled legacy. For William, that may have been more important than winning one court battle. He was trying to make sure his children would never face the same uncertainty he had experienced as a teenager. Then came the public message. Weeks after the legal dispute had settled, William and Catherine appeared together at a royal engagement. Nothing about the event initially seemed unusual. The schedule was routine. The gathering was formal. The photographers were there as expected. But Catherine was wearing something that immediately attracted attention. It was a piece of jewelry associated with Diana, not necessarily one of the 2 recovered pieces, not something suddenly discovered. Rather, a piece that had reportedly remained properly documented. And that distinction mattered. There was no announcement, no official explanation, no palace briefing telling journalists what they were supposed to notice. The jewelry was simply there. Catherine wore it publicly. The photograph spread. Royal watchers noticed. And the symbolism was impossible to miss. Diana's legacy was being carried forward by the next generation. The message did not need to be spoken. It was visible. Camilla was reportedly present at the same event. She remained composed. She followed the schedule. She performed the role expected of her. There was no public confrontation. No dramatic exchange. Nothing that could be pointed to as an obvious clash. But symbolically, the distance between the two sides appeared much greater than before. One represented the institution as it existed. The other represented where the monarchy was heading. And Diana's jewelry became a quiet symbol of that transition. Still, one major question remained. What about the 12 missing pieces? That is where the story refuses to offer a simple ending. The recovered jewelry was back under protection. The legal structure around Diana's legacy had reportedly been strengthened. The immediate dispute had been contained. But the missing artifacts remained outside the country. And if the reported Delaware connection was real, bringing them home would require another legal battle across borders. William had secured what he could reach. But he could not simply command the rest to return. That left the story suspended between victory and uncertainty. The monarchy, meanwhile, continued as if nothing had changed. Charles remained king. Camilla remained queen. Public engagements continued. Official statements remained measured. From the outside, the institution appeared stable. That is how the monarchy has survived countless crises. Private disputes are processed behind closed doors. Public confidence is protected through calm appearances. But inside the system, according to this account, something had changed. William had shown that he was prepared to use legal and institutional tools when he believed the crown's interests were threatened. Charles had reportedly signed the document placed before him, and that meant the relationship between the king and his heir had entered a new phase. It was not necessarily a public conflict. Did not need to be. The most powerful moments inside the monarchy are often the ones that never reach the cameras. No press conference was required. No public argument was necessary. The legal documents said enough. The recovered jewelry said enough. And Catherine wearing Diana's piece said even more. Camilla's position had not disappeared. Her title remained. Her public role remained. But according to the story, the networks and arrangements surrounding her household had been seriously weakened. Laura had surrendered her claim to the recovered pieces. The Diana Heritage Trust had created a new barrier around the legacy. And William had demonstrated that he would not simply accept old arrangements because they had existed for years. Yet the 12 missing artifacts remained. That is the unresolved question hanging over the entire story. If they really were moved overseas, who arranged it? Why were they moved? Who benefits from keeping them hidden? And what happens if they eventually appear in another auction catalog? Because that possibility changes everything. The first discovery may have looked like an isolated incident. But if 12 more pieces exist somewhere outside Britain, another appearance could reopen the entire dispute. And next time, William would not be discovering the problem for the first time. He would already know what to look for. That may be the most important part of this entire story. The black diamond pendant and sapphire bracelet were not simply objects. Within this account, they became symbols of something much larger. Ownership, memory, family, and the struggle over who gets to control Diana's legacy. William was 17 when he was told that his mother's belongings were safe. More than 2 decades later, he was reportedly the person demanding proof. And that difference says everything about how much had changed. The boy who once had to trust the adults around him had become the man responsible for protecting the institution that would one day be his. He did not need a dramatic confrontation. He did not need a public accusation. He needed documents, lawyers, evidence, and time. And according to this story, that was exactly what he used. 2 pieces came back. The future was placed behind stronger legal walls. But 12 pieces remained somewhere beyond the reach of the British system. And that is why this story does not really end with a court order. It ends with a question. Because if the missing jewelry ever appears again, the world will know exactly what it means. The palace may try to remain silent. The lawyers may try to keep the details private. But another photograph could change everything. And somewhere, according to the story, 12 pieces of Diana's personal history may still be waiting to tell their part of the story.